Hey there, welcome to the API integration series. This is Saloni Garge along with my co-host Vaishnavi Garan. Stay with us throughout this journey to know more about API, their uses, and work along with us till the end of this series to practically implement exciting API.
So, let's begin your journey with getting to know what an API is.
API is the acronym for Application Programming Interface. It is software to software interface using which different software talk with each other without any user knowledge or intervention. It is a set of programming code that enables data transmission between one software product and another. It also contains the terms of this data exchange. Each API contains a set of function calls, and they are implemented using function calls where one software or website call the function of another website and gets it output or response that can be displayed or used by first software or website. You might be thinking, what is function call? So, function call is nothing but the language statement that requests software to perform particular action and services. You can consider the picture that is shown on the screen where app A wants to access the data from the server. So, app A is client and it wants to access the data from app B, that is server. So what it does is it sends request to the server where server executes the request and sends the response back to client. So here are two applications that are communicating with each other, and this is exactly what API does. To understand API better way, let us consider a real world example of an hotel where the customer orders some food item and the food is prepared in the kitchen. So the link between these two is the waiter who takes the order from the customer to the kitchen, and after the food is prepared, the waiter delivers it to that particular customer. So API does the similar work as waiter. That is, it takes the request and after the execution of that request, it responds to that particular program. Now let us have a look at various types of API. So the first one is local API. It is original form of API, which is operating system API, which provides services to the application program like GUI or frontend. Here, the data is requested from the backend service such as voice service or database service. Next is program API that is based on RPC technology. That is remote procedure called technology, where a part of program or the remote program is on another server. For example, we could consider the functions in the programming language where we send a call to the function and then that part of code within the function is executed and returned back to the original program. So similarly, program API is used between remote programs between different servers. Next is web APIs. As the name suggests, is an API over the web, which can be accessed using HTTP protocol. It is a concept and not a technology. We can build API, web API using different technologies such as Java and .NET, etc. A web API is again classified into two types, that is SOAP, that is Simple Object Access Protocol, and REST, that is Representational State Transfer Protocol. REST is an architectural style in which a web service can only be treated as a RESTful service if it follows the constraints of being client-server, stateless, cacheable, layered system, and uniform interface. The main idea behind designing the SOAP was to ensure that programs built on different platforms and programming languages could exchange data in an easy manner. SOAP works only with XML format, whereas REST can work with HTML, XML, JSON, etc. SOAP cannot make use of REST, whereas REST can make use of SOAP. That's it from my side. Further topics will be explained by Ms. Saloni Garve.
So moving on to the need for an API. Now that we have got to know what an API is and what are the different types of API, we should also know what is the need to use these APIs. So, the need for an API can be divided into three parts. First is why will the user need an API? Second, why the developers will need an API, and third, why the providers will need an API. So, why will a user need an API? Now, imagine that you want a service. So, you'll just fill in some basic details, click on submit, and you'll get the required result back without having to get into all those backend complexities. So, this increases the speed, security, and the scalability. Now, why the developer will need an API? So, whenever a user demands something, the developers can just use the APIs and to call the services over the internet and use them in their own app or website for their own good. Now, as the API resembles software as a service, so the developers don't have to write from scratch the code. The program can be reusable. Now, the main question is, why will the providers need to create an API? Now, this is very simple. This in turn increases the traffic of their business. The providers can expose their backend, that is the data and the services, so that these developers can integrate the APIs into their apps and websites and can draw the users to their business. Moving on to the uses of APIs. Now, after so much discussion on APIs, you must be wondering, where exactly do we use these APIs, right? So, from shopping online to browsing a social media app or playing a game on your smartphone, every time you visit a page online, you're interacting with some API. And although you may not notice them, APIs are really everywhere, powering our lives from behind the scenes. Now let's have a look at some of the real-world examples where these APIs are a lifesaver. Now consider the weather snippets. These are a common example of APIs that we come across daily basis, that is the weather data. Now, these rich weather snippets seem to be commonplaces and are found on various platforms like Google Search, Apple's weather app, or even in our smart home devices. So you just search that the weather for Mumbai today and on Google and you'll see all the weather conditions and forecasts. Now Google isn't in the business of weather data yet, right? So where do they get these information from? Obviously a third party. That is by the means of an API which sends them the latest weather details in a way that is easy for them to reformat. Now imagine that you're planning a vacation. So you have to book an hotel. What do? You just put in the details of your travels, where you're going, for how many days you're staying, and hit enter. And boom, you get the answers. How? Using the third-party API. You get the list of places where you can stay, the options, the cheapest available options, the prices, the rates, everything on a click. Now consider if you want to find the restaurants near you. What do? You just search restaurants near me and you get a list of all the local restaurants nearby. Thanks to the API. Similarly, APIs are everywhere, from banking to social medias, and the topic for this series, that is payment gateway. So without further ado, let's get started.